Hi, this is Dr. Pingle here with a quick overview of Excel pivot tables. So Excel pivot tables are a way to tabulate or summarize or cross-tabulate your data. It's a dynamic interface that lets you build sort of the basics of what you might want to use for a graph or a chart from what I would call atomic data, so individual point data that comes in that you need to summarize in some way. We're going to show you a geographic example of that, but I thought we'd start with something simple here. So at the left, I've got a simple table here. Each row is sort of a particular sale, let's say, and we record who did the sale, what department they're in, and how much it was for. You've probably used formulas before, so you can do things like summarize what the total amount is, and that's very easy to do. You can also do things like compute the average, and that's very easy to do. But what we're interested in is what if we want to add up all of the sales that Bob did? What if we want to aggregate this and figure out which department sold the most? We could do these individually, but a pivot table is going to be a much faster way of doing this. So over at the right here, I've got an example of what a pivot table looks like, and I'm going to show you how to make it. In this case, this is a cross tabulation, so I have the person here on the left, and I've got the amount that they've done, or I've got the department that they've done on the columns, and then you can summarize things both by rows and by columns. So you can see the total amount that was done by each department. You can see the total amount that was done by each person. So how do we make these? It's actually super easy. All we need to do is go into Insert and Pivot Table. If you're in a chart that you want to summarize all the data, then you can just select the table itself. If you want to be specific, you can select the data that you're working with here. So I'll do that just as an example. What you get when you start with here is sort of a blank field here, and what you're going to do is you're going to build a report based on this information over here at the right. And you're going to do that by dragging and dropping pieces in here. So to make the table that you just saw, I would grab person and put them in the row labels, and I would grab department and put them in the column labels, and then I can produce these summary variables. What do I want to know? Well, I might want to know the total amount that they've sold. So by default, this is the sum. So making these tables is as easy as dragging and dropping, and you can move things around after you've done that. So for instance, maybe I want to remove this field and just look at these things by rows. Maybe I don't just want to know the sum, but I might also be interested in knowing other things about this. So I can go into the value fields and I can say, well, I don't really want to know the sum. What I want to know is the average, and I can get that. I can drag that in here again, and I could say, well, I don't really want to know just the average, but maybe I want to know how many sales they did in a given period. So I could do that. So Anne has 4 sales with a total amount of $55 and an average of 13.81. And you can format these in exactly the same way as you would format anything else. So you can go in here and say, well, this is actually dollars, so format it this way. So you can treat these things just as you would ordinary Excel data. You can also, so I've shown you how to do a cross tabulation. We did that first. I've shown you how to do adding in these extra pieces here, so sum, average, count, and definitely take a look at what all of these are. So we've got sums, counts, averages, max, min, product, standard deviation, variance. All of those things are likely to come in handy for you at some point. The other nice thing that you can do is you can actually filter. We've got a filter box here. If we wanted to only see what people did by a certain department, then we can drag that in here and then we can filter. By default that's on, but maybe we just want to summarize based on only their electronic sales, only their sales in the sales department, and so we can filter our data that way. So that's a really handy function. The other thing that we can do is we can create a, we can do these things by 2 rows. So we can basically take the table that you see here and break that down in a way that you might see with states and counties, for instance. So we'll make another pivot table here. We'll select this range again. And then what I want to do is show you how to do this with 2 rows. So instead of putting 1 in the columns and 1 in the row, we're going to put person. Actually, let's put department here first. Doesn't really matter. We could rearrange that. But we're going to put department and person, and you can see that what we've got is a breakdown of how the electronics department did with both Bob and Sean having sales in there, how housewares did with Ann, Ash, and Bob having sales. And then, of course, we can put this in here in the same way as we did. So this is essentially the same information that you're getting up here, just in a slightly different expression. But all of the same ideas sort of apply there. So pivot tables are a really handy way of summarizing your data when you have these individual point or atomic level data that you need to summarize, which is actually surprisingly common with geographic data. So in the next videos, we'll show you how to work using pivot tables with geographic data specifically. Thanks.